from all over the world. It's time for the Crescent City Connection.
And the Saints go marching on.
With the Saints News crew.
And the Saints go marching on.
First and 10, let the story begin. It's football Sunday, the Saints marching in. We went from bags on our heads to them calling us ain'ts. Now it's been said they gon' beat them Saints. First round bye, when we make the playoff, everybody hating, cause we get to take the day off. Vince and Boogie, nobody do it better. Now we on our way to our best season ever.
Who that? And the Saints go marching on. Who that? And the Saints go marching on.
All right, Saints fans and who-dats from all over the world, this is Kyle T. Mosley of the Crescent City Connection here in the house tonight with the professional Remy Jones. What's happening, Rem?
Hey, man, I'm a happy who-dat this week, man. Who would have thought we'd be leading the division right now? It's a good feeling I'm having right about now.
Yeah, it is good to be on top. And we may have
where we belong.
Right back where we belong. And we have Mr. Bob Rose from the Canal Street Chronicles. What's happening, Bob?
Not a lot at all, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
Good, man. Good to have you guys.
I'm good.
Good.
All right.
Good. Now, and to be fair, some of us had predicted us to be on top of the division in the preseason predictions, but I'll let that slide for now.
Oh no, man! Don't let it slide, because actually in preseason I had us predicted that way as well. It's just after those first two games I was like, oh my God, but it's not like. Yeah, those first two games, it wasn't like, we were even in them. We got killed, man. And I was like, oh, God, this is going to be a long season. But they've turned it around.
Yeah, that scared me. And, I mean, there's no crime to lose to the Patriots, even when you are at home. Taken out of those first two games, what scared the hell out of me the most was the fact that Sam Bradford lit us up again. And yeah, that had me scared going forward. But these guys, I obviously still a long season to go, but these guys are really pulling it together. I'm proud of them so far.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so far so good, man. Those guys in the black and gold came away with another win in the historic Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. The young Brett Hundley, the second Brett to ever start a NFL game at quarterback. Can you believe that? And both the Packers nation have Brett Favre as well as Brett Hundley to do it. So, but the young guy was game at first. He came out balling, led the Packers down the field against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints responded in kind. It was again, Remy, and again, Bob, it was a slow start for the Saints in their offensive scheme, but they made the adjustments, as well as the defense made some adjustments against the run to be able to right the ship, so to speak. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, what happened in Green Bay. We're also going to talk about what has happened in the rumor mill with a possible homecoming of Jimmy Graham. Oh, could that be? No, we don't think so. And there's been quite a bit of rumors floating around. I heard another one with Larry Fitzgerald possibly coming to the Saints. And that one I do like, but we will talk a little bit more about those as well. Don't forget, go to www.saintsnewsnetwork.com so you can be able to read all the latest articles from Barry Hirstius on the New Orleans Saints. Also, you can go to www.saintsnews.net to be able to get the latest in Saints news around the clock 24/7. You can follow us at Twitter at Saints News, as well as on Instagram at Saints News and on Facebook at Saints News. All right, guys. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in Lambeau Field. Bob, were you concerned when you saw the Saints offense be a little sluggish at the beginning of the game?
Yeah, I was. This Green Bay defense that they were going up against was not exactly the most impressive unit in the league. I mean, far from it. They have some very nice players. Perry and Clay Matthews along the outside linebackers come to mind instantly. I don't think it was anything that the Green Bay defense was doing. I'll be honest with you. And, Barry and I text each other every now and then, as do you and I, Kyle, during the games sometimes. And I'll spare you the language that I text to Mr. Hirstius, but I did, let's just say I showed a little bit of concern for Drew Brees, or for what we were seeing out of Drew Brees. Not that you have any doubts about his decision-making. I mean, he takes risks. That's what gunslinger quarterbacks do. But as I was watching him in the weather conditions, both of his interceptions were bad decisions. That's not the end of the world. We've seen that from Drew every now and then during the course of his career. But what's concerning to me, and I'll be honest, it concerned me during even the previous 3-game winning streak coming into the game, was the fact that he's short on an awful lot of his passes. Not a great deal, but for those that constantly question Brees, Drew's critics or detractors are constantly questioning his arm strength, especially now that he's getting older, and that just threw some fuel onto the fire for some of those critics. And like I said, it was not only bad decision making, but he didn't put the ball in a good position, and he looked like he was coming short on an awful lot of throws. Having said that, he obviously rebounded very nicely, though.
Yeah, well, Rim, you know me, man. I've been saying this about Drew for several years, that he's always looked a little behind the receiver at times. Even earlier this year, a couple of those passes to Ginn down the field, man, if he would have just been a half step before or stepped into the passes a little bit better than he did, we probably would have had a couple more scores. But this is nothing new from Drew. It's just, to me, it was going to be when it was going to happen again,
Yeah.
And it did, but luckily it did not take away from the outcome of the game, But Drew is going to have those shaky, little questionable starts, and I think that's why a lot of the detractors say he's not up to snuff with a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. Now, when those guys make mistakes, people kind of sweep them under the rug. But Drew's mistakes to our team is so important for him to be on more than anybody else on the offensive side. It really is a total glare or illumination of the problems in the offense. Rim, what were your thoughts? Because I know for the past several weeks you had some concerns about the offense as well.
It was the same. What frustrates me about Drew at times is that I can remember a few seasons ago where they would literally show how accurate he was. They would show how he would put the ball in these small windows to the receivers, and he would hit it every time. He would find that one angle where only our receiver could get it, whether it was throw it low, throw it over the shoulder, throw it to the sideline, whatever. And he's not doing that as, I guess you could say, perfectly as he used to do. And, so for me, that's really the frustration, where I was so used to seeing him be almost perfect. And then, you're seeing he's human. He makes the same mistakes that everyone else makes. And like you said, with our offense, we need him to be perfect. We really do.
Right.
But I will say this, though, he in the first 2 games that we lost miserably, we had no turnovers. We had 2 in this one, but we won. So what do you want? You want no turnovers, or do you want the W?
Yeah, well, the W is always what we really want, right? But you still got to have those questions there.
Yeah.
Look, man, and not only Drew, I just believe that Sean Payton and the offensive play calling at the beginning, I don't know if it's the first half or really the first quarter. And Bob, maybe you can shed some light on to this. It seems like still he is a little sluggish in how he's calling these plays.
Yeah, he does seem a little bit sluggish. And, for an offensive-minded guy like Coach Payton is, I find that a little bit surprising, and we saw it at times from them last year too. He early in his career, and this goes as when he was offensive coordinator at a few different places, he liked to come out firing on all cylinders and really open up his playbook early in the game and put a lot of pressure not only on the defense that they were facing, but the opposing offense just to keep pace with them. And I fully expected them to do this kind of thing coming into the Green Bay game, because the Packers were without Aaron Rodgers, so we knew that they were going to be limited in what they could do, especially against an improving Saints defense, and I know we'll get into them in a minute. So I was very, very surprised to see him come out a little bit conservative, at least for Peyton. Now we were hearing reports about the footing on Lambeau Field, and even Coach himself, alluded to that. Not only to the Fox sideline reporters, but he talked more in length after the game. And one of the quotes that he used was that the footing was, quote, not as good as what it looked like on TV. Well, we weren't down on the field, so we'll have to take his word for that. I don't know why he opened up rather conservatively against Green Bay, unless it was a feeling out process. And this is something that I was have been wondering about over the last couple of weeks myself. Is he showing more in his play calling? Is he showing more confidence in his defense and his offense's ability to control the ball on the ground, that he no longer feels like he has to come out firing from the hip with Breeze in that passing game? That they want to, instead of just blowing you out of the waters early and going for that early TKO, to use a boxing term, instead he feels like he's going to, kind of like a constrictor snake, just slowly squeeze the life out of you. Letting the defense take control of the game, and knowing that he has Drew in that passing game when they need it, but sort of keeping wraps on it. So I'm sort of on the fence between that. I personally would have liked to see them come out firing from the hip and putting pressure on the Green Bay offense to match them score for score. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised. The way we saw them come out in the second half, much more aggressive in the passing game. That's the way I'd like to see them open more games. But, Remy, like you said, we're used to Drew Brees and this passing game being perfect, and we're used to a certain amount of things from them. So maybe we've gotten spoiled over the years, and that's what we've come to expect.
Good point. Good point. Are we spoiled, guys, in the Who Dat Nation? If you want to join into the live broadcast, it's 504-533-8444. You can have Mr. Remy Jones and Bob Rose answer your important Saints questions. All right, guys. The Saints showed a little bit of more balance in offense with the rushing. Drew Brees did have 331 yards in passing, but Mr. Ingram showed up with 22 rushing attempts and 105 yards on the ground. Kamara, I should say, had 9 attempts and 57 yards. And, these guys totaled it up, and it was over 160 yards total. Man, it was a good effort for us to see the rushing game balance out against the passing game. And you did see some of that opening up for the Saints play action fakes. So that was pretty good. But what was more surprising to me, your favorite player on the Saints team, Bob Rose, the guy that you love and you just express your desire to see him catch every pass that comes his way. Mr. Teddy Ginn had 7 catches for $141. Can you believe it? What happened there, Bob?
Oh, I knew you were going to bring that up today, too. I knew you were. Listen, you got to give credit to Teddy Ginn, not only for the game that he had against the Packers, but really the way that he has played coming into this season. He hasn't, and I've said it on the show a couple different times, I keep waiting for him to blow the top off of a defense because that's the number one thing he's been best at his whole career. They're using him in a little bit different way, though. And, like we were just talking about, Breeze and the, I guess, difference that we're seeing in the passing game. Part of that is with Mr. Ginn. They're still getting him the ball, doing their best to get him the ball in open space, which, of course, is going to be his strength. But they're doing it on a lot of quick slant passes and, like quick hitches, wide receiver screens, things like that. And I don't have the statistics, pass drop statistics in front of me to see if Ginn is even credited with any drops this year. But his catch percentage is something around 80 or 81%, which is by far the highest that he's had in his career. He's really come into play. And like I said, he not only deserves a nod for the type of game that he had against Green Bay when he was their top receiving threat, but really the way that he's played all season. He has really embraced his complementary role, and he's playing well. He's running some different routes on the route tree than we were seeing from him earlier in his career. And we knew that Breeze makes everybody better around him, and we knew that Ted Ginn Jr. would benefit from having Drew Brees as his quarterback, but I don't think any of us expected to see this type of modification in Ginn's game. And yeah, I'll admit, I'm eating some crow on that free agent signing because the man's really coming to play. He's playing some good football right now.
Yeah, well, I tell you this much: he did well in the passing game, but he gave me some heartburn when it came to the punting. He muffed two, and I know one was called back because of the penalty there. But, God, man, Rem and Bob, I was like, come on, man. I started thinking about you. I was like, oh, there the brick hands are showing. There they come. There they happened, man. So, but it was good to see Teddy doing such a great job. And the offense made a great adjustment toward the second quarter and going into the second half when they started to focus on Michael Thomas and really get him the ball. But that one pass Drew tried to force into Thomas was that was a head scratcher to me. All right, welcome to the show, Mr. Barry Hirstius. What's happening, my man from Harahan?
Kyle, how are you, my friend?
Oh, good. You're here with the professional Remy Jones and Bob Rose.
Oh, well, I'm glad we got part of the crew with us tonight. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good, Barry. But look, Barry, we were talking a little bit about what happened in the first half of the game. Just quick, man, what are your takeaways when it comes to how the receiving corps has responded and modified their approach with the emergence of having a guy like Ginn put a $141 on the board, and we still have a great talent in Michael Thomas, but everybody seems to be complimenting one another. And Brandon Coleman, can you believe it? Another touchdown on the board. Wow.
Yeah, I like what you're doing. Obviously, with the trade of Brandon Cooks to the Patriots, kind of had terminology I'd use is you'd have to reshuffle the deck, so to speak, because certain roles change. Now, Snead's always going to be Snead. He's always going to be that slot or possession receiver type of guy. But, obviously Thomas was all the intent was always to make him the successor to Marcus Colston and become the number one guy. And he essentially took over that role as a rookie. So now you're just seeing teams are doubling him. They're doubling up on him, and his stats have suffered. But he's getting the best cornerback of every opponent that they face every week now. So I think that's to be expected. I think as talented as he is, it's part of the growing pains of learning the ins and outs of the league, so to speak. And look, Keyshawn Johnson's nephew, I have no question in my mind that he's going to become a superstar. It's his destiny, in my opinion. Ted Ginn Jr. has really impressed me. I heard you and Bob talking about the muff punt. I was coming on the air. And look, Ted Ginn Jr. has always been a talented wide receiver. His issue has always been drops and hanging on to the football. And, man, and I mentioned it in my article the night, the same night after the game was over, that, he gave Saints fans some trepidation with those muffs, and those are the type of things that has followed him all throughout his career. Even when he was at Ohio State in college, he had the same issues. So, but I like how he's blossomed, and how the Saints have incorporated him into the passing game. And you can see that each week, Breeze is getting more comfortable with him. And I mean, he was, if you thought about it, Breeze was looking his way often in that game. To me, that's the first game where he's targeted again a few times, and they've tried to slowly bring him along into the game. But in this most recent game, you could see that he factored into the game plan heavily, and give Ginn credit. He stepped up to the plate. As long as I'm kind of wondering, maybe we should put Kamara back there fielding punts for future considerations. But that aside, I like what they've done. And then Coleman. Look, I agree with you. Coleman is really starting to come on. I think that the biggest factor, and Bob might have said this, or somebody said it over at Canal Street Chronicles, that Coleman's most impressive thing isn't his receiving; it's his blocking. He is a phenomenal blocker.
He is.
And it might have been Deuce Wyndham, our friend Deuce Wyndham at Canal Street Chronicles, that writes there with Bob, who might have had the film breakdown or the GIF of I believe it was a play to it might have been Kamara or Ingram. I don't remember who it was. And and Coleman is blocking on the play, and he just takes out his guy. I mean, just completely takes the guy out.
Angry.
And helps clear out that whole side. I mean, obviously you had Pete and Armstead there, but it's actually Coleman's block that springs. I'm going to guess it was Kamara that springs Kamara for that run. So just for the phenomenal blocker, and that's why I know a lot of Saints fans are a little hard on Coleman, but they don't realize because they don't watch film or they don't think about those type of X factors, in the game itself, where, the reason why Brandon Coleman is always going to be in the lineup is because he's a fantastic blocker. 6'6", that doesn't hurt for sure. So, all in all, I like what the receiving core has done. It's not a dynamic outside of Michael Thomas, obviously when he's on his A game. It's not a dynamic receivers core. It's not a they're not like the Eagles right now. When Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey, who are maybe the most dynamic duo in the league right now as far as that goes. They're outside of Michael Thomas. You really don't have that superstar, that Des Bryant type of guy. But it's the Saints offense, the same offense they've been running for the last 11 years. And what's happening is, and I covered this yesterday, and I'm sure Bob and those guys over at Canal Street have done the same thing, which is it's a formula that's worked for the last decade. I mean, it worked in 2006, it worked in 2009, and it worked in 2011. And it's working again this year, which is Drew Brees, masterfully or efficiently running the offense, but more importantly than Brees, you have to have a solid running game behind him, and it doesn't have to be a great defense, but it has to be at least an average defense. And all the years that the Saints have had their greatest success, 06, 09, 11, it's always been those three factors together that's the winning formula, to speak. And that's what you're seeing this year. You got the running game has been revitalized thanks to the addition of Kamara, and actually addition by subtraction by getting rid of Adrian Peterson. And now you're not forcing a guy into that offense that they were doing those first two games. And then, of course, I mean, what can we say about that defense? Just phenomenal improvement, overall improvement by the defense. Marshall and Lattimore, man. I mean, I personally, and we're talking. I've been following the Saints since 1973, covering them here the last few years. But man, other than Ricky Jackson in 1981, I can't think of a Saints rookie that's had a greater impact than Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, he's just phenomenal. I mean, it seems like he's a 10-year pro. He's gonna be a lockdown corner for years and years to come. The only thing that can stop this kid from being a superstar at cornerback, a Deion Sanders type of guy, is injuries. It's Lattimore, because Lattimore's had some issues with injuries, but if he could stay injury free, man, the Saints, and to me, it's the biggest difference. Everybody, because I get a lot of questions, what do I think is the reason why the defense is so improved? And you can point to a lot of factors, and I'm sure Bob will agree with me. The linebackers are improved, the pass rush is improved. I mean, there's a litany of things that you could say they're doing better than they have, obviously, in the last 3 years. But for me, if you were to signal out one specific thing, specifically, it would be that you got a lockdown corner. Teams were throwing on the Saints at will the last 3 seasons. Now, they can't do that right now. I mean, the only guy they really can pick on, I guess, would be a Devontae Harris or Crawley. Crawley sometimes, depending on if he's got his head in the game or not, which he obviously didn't a few plays in that game. But, when you have a lockdown secondary, it frees up everything else. It frees up that front seven to make plays. Yeah. And to me, that's what you're seeing. Yeah. You're just seeing a defense that was hamstrung before because the secondary was trash, basically. Now with lockdown secondary, that quarterback, he can't just get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or whatever it is anymore. Now he's got to hold that ball and scan the field. And by the time he finally gets that open receiver, bam, there's Cam Jordan. Bam, there's Alex Okafor. Bam, there's, whoever's making the play, A.J. Klein, whoever, Craig Robertson even. So those are the things that weren't happening in the last 3 years that you're seeing now.
Yeah, good point. Pro Football Focus has Marshawn Lattimore ranked number 1 in the rookie standings through 7 weeks at a grade of 94.1. Outstanding job, young man, as a rookie. He's definitely a candidate for Rookie of the Year, especially Defensive Rookie of the Year. Cam Jordan has been rated as the highest graded edge defender in the National Football League at 92.5 by Pro Football Focus as well. All right, guys, the Saints are looking good, right? But usually when you're looking good, you've got to be able to watch out for the wood coming at you. And Rim, the wood could be a trap game. Well, I apologize. Remy had to drop off. So, Bob, I'm going to throw this at you. The trap game scenario is always true when you have a team that's on the roll and you have a young, struggling team coming in trying to make their mark. But they're a pretty gamey team in the Chicago Bears.
That they are. First and foremost, let's start with the Bears head coach, somebody that the Saints and Saints fans are very familiar with. Bears head coach John Fox, who started his career as the head man in Carolina. So the Saints saw a lot of him over the years. Foxy, of course, moved on from Carolina to Denver, where he had a lot of success there. And the one thing you have to say about a John Fox team is they're going to come at you hard. They're going to be very defensive-oriented. They're going to look to cause turnovers and create points off of those turnovers. And that's exactly how they beat Carolina last week. I think the Bears' offense had less than 10 first downs total for the entire game, but the Chicago defense kept Carolina out of the end zone, winning 17-3, and created points off of defense and turnovers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they
Foxy
sure did.
coach teams, and especially this Bears team, they don't have a lot of talent, but they play hard and they look to create turnovers. They're a very opportunistic bunch, and they do have playmakers on all three levels of the defense, and that's what we got to start with, because they have, and Barry, you wrote about Akeem Hicks, former New Orleans Saint, who's playing extremely well for the Bears, not only this season, but really last season he played well as well. Also, Hicks is a real force on the defensive line, and they are top 10 caliber defense because of their ability to stop the run as well. And that not only comes from Akeem Hicks, but from Eddie Goldman, their second-year defensive tackle inside. He's a big body. And that's going to be a challenge for the New Orleans offensive line, the inside men, because as we all know, and I know we'll get to injuries in a minute, but the Saints offensive line is going to be without Larry Warford. So even though Calamiti has played well when called upon in the past, Goldman and Hicks, when he moves inside, they're going to be real handfuls for not only the ability to run the ball, but Drew likes to step up in the pocket, especially on a longer developing pass pattern. So the Saints offensive line are going to have to control these guys on the defensive line. At the linebacking core, you have to watch out for Chicago's Leonard Floyd on the outside. He can rush the passer. He's an extremely athletic guy who's also pretty capable at dropping into coverage. Then they have Danny Trevathan. And I know Trevathan's been fined a few times over his career for some questionable hits. But the fact is, he's a very athletic playmaker, sideline to sideline. He's a very good pass. He's a very good pass coverage guy. So that might be a challenge for Kamara and even Mark Ingram when he comes out of the backfield. And then Eddie Jackson. I know you guys saw the couple of plays that Eddie Jackson made from his safety position against Carolina.
Right.
But the guy coming out of the draft is a safety from Alabama. So you know he's going to be fundamentally sound if he comes from Nick Saban's bunch. He was drafted far lower than what he should have been, mainly because of a knee injury that he suffered in college that sort of scared away from some draft people early. But it certainly wasn't lack for talent. The guy looks like a real star on the back end, and they have a solid cornerback crew too. Not a lot of shiny press-grabbing names outside of Prince Amukamara. But these guys play good defense. So it's not like even inside the dome, the Saints aren't going to roll up 40 or 45 points on these guys with ease. Now switching to the offensive end, the Saints defense on paper. You talked about a potential trap game, Kyle, and Barry. I know you and I have talked about before about how Saints defenses in the past have made pedestrian or mediocre quarterbacks look like future Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And that's what has to scare you about this game. I mean, the Bears passing game has not done anything spectacular up to this point in time. But John Fox teams, they always like to do what? Run the ball and hit you with play action. So if they can run the ball, and Jordan Howard is as good a running back as anybody, and they have this rookie, Barry called him the poor man's Kamara in his article earlier. I don't remember whether it was earlier today or yesterday, but Tarek Cohen, and he's a playmaker out of the backfield too. Their offense is going to revolve around the abilities of these two running backs, not only running the ball, but making plays out of the backfield. And if the Saints linebackers and safeties cannot contain these running backs, that's going to leave the cornerbacks on a little bit of an island. And I'm not worried about Lattimore. He's developing into potentially one of the better ones in the game already. But on the other side, Kenny Crawley. I'm a big Crawley fan. I know you guys like his game too and like the way he's playing better. But the fact is he still has not shown much consistency. And that's where you kind of worry if the Saints cannot control the running game and the running backs of Chicago, that maybe that opens them up for some big plays down the field through the middle and even latter stages of the game. So I'm not as worried about this Chicago team as I was even the Green Bay team last week with the talent they had at the skill positions. But John Fox teams are going to play hard and come at you, and these Saints got to be ready.
Yeah. Well, the one thing you're going to really have to pay attention to is how John Fox and the offensive coordinator over at Chicago is going to utilize Trubisky, right? Are they going to unleash the young man? And you guys talk about pedestrian quarterbacks turning into Hall of Famers. Could this be that game that he really breaks out and have one of those 200-yard efforts against the New Orleans Saints? But will that offensive line give him enough time to do so against the Saints pass rush? And we know Dennis Allen is going to be all about the blitz, right, Barry?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last question. Say it again.
I say we know Dennis Allen is going to be about the blitz.
Oh, absolutely. Look, here's the thing with Trubisky, and I agree with Bob. I do worry about it just because it's the Saints. And this team, 51 years worth of history, we've seen that scenario play out. And Kyle, you relate so many times in the past that the Saints have turned no-name guys into heroes. I was worried about it last week with Hundley. Luckily, that didn't prove to be the case. But I think the biggest difference for me personally, and this is just an observation, I could be wrong because I do share Bob's gut feeling about it. But I think the difference is that with Trubisky, and this is not so much a knock on Trubisky, as I think it's John Fox's conservatism creeping into it, is that I don't think Fox feels comfortable with turning the kid loose. So, I mean, he threw the ball 7 times in the whole game last week. 7 times in the game.
Yeah.
And not in one quarter, not in one series. In the game, he threw the ball 7 times. So, I definitely think they'll blitz, but I just think that their game plan is going to be the old-fashioned mash mouth type of game plan where they're just going to slug it out. In my prediction article this morning, I picked the final score to be 23-20, and Saints fans went crazy on me. Said, "Oh no, they're going to score." You can always tell the fans who watch football and the fans who don't actually watch football and just are homers or just they're just black and gold, but they don't watch football. They don't, And so, the people that appreciated the article were the people who actually watched the sport and understand that this Bears team is not to be taken lightly. But that said, I just think that Trubisky is going through some major growing pains right now. Again, I think part of it is that Fox is holding him back. I think if this were a different team, let's say if he was on the Eagles or the Rams, with a little more open-minded head coach, that maybe they would be letting him throw the ball more often, and you'd see a different result. But because it's the Bears and it's John Fox's team, they're kind of holding the reins back on the kid a little bit, and that obviously works to the Saints' advantage. But on the flip side, as Bob alluded to, look, they're going to try to establish the run, set up the play action. And if Ken Crawley is over there taking a nap, like he's prone to do, then yeah, you could see, I mean, their receivers aren't that great, but if Ken Crawley's over there, playing the zombie, then look, Trubisky is certainly more than capable of hitting you for a 70-yard bomb down the sideline. Make no mistake about it, he's a phenomenal talent. It's just that, his head is swimming a little bit. He's still trying to learn, a basic, simple concepts of an NFL offense. But, look, just because he's a rookie don't mean he can't come out and burn you. And that to me would be my biggest fear. I don't, as Bob said, Lattimore isn't a concern at all. It's the other side, until Bro gets back. So we'll see. But that said, it's a winnable game. And I agree with Bob. I actually feel more confident, I guess, about this game than I did the Saints' chances at Green Bay, just because it's hard to win in Lambeau Field. That was only the third time ever. Can you imagine? The third time ever in 51 years that the Saints won in Wisconsin.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's how long it's been. 51 years, it was only the third time they ever won in Wisconsin.
But do you remember? But Barry, do you remember the 2006 season when those guys went up to Lambeau and just shot
and then And the other one was 1971, Archie Manning's rookie season.
Wow.
That's how many times that just those 2 years, 71 and 06, were the only two years they ever won in Wisconsin in 51 years until this past week. So. It just goes to show you how hard it is to win in Lambeau. And,
look, Barry.
Give him credit. And look, that first half had me sweating big time, and I wasn't feeling too good about it. And I thought, well, I warned everybody not to take it lightly. But look, to their credit, and of course, Breeze's interception. Do I think he's regressing? Because I got that question this week. I don't know if I would say he's regressing per se, but I think he obviously forced some throws. There's no question he forced some throws in there that he probably would like to have back. I don't know if I'd say he's regressing, but as I said on Twitter last night, it's inevitable that he's going to regress. Whether whether you think Drew Brees has 5 years left or 5 months, it's coming. Because trust me. And I think all three of us are around the same age that all of us can verify that when it hits you, you can't stop it.
Oh man, look, that's what my wife says to me every night. So yeah, look, guys.
Look, I turned 50 this Saturday, the big 5-0 this Saturday.
Congratulations!
Look, my wife reminds me of it constantly about how old I'm getting, and I got a little one in here that calls me Pawpaw every night that lives with us, and one of the reasons why I was late getting on the air, I had to tuck her into bed. But, look, man, when it creeps up on you, and anybody listening that's under the age of 35 probably doesn't appreciate it yet, but when you get to be over age 35, trust me when I tell you, it not only can it not be stopped, but it creeps up on you quick.
Yeah.
And
well, look, man, Barry, I got you beat. I'm 50, about to hit 51, so I understand.
Yeah.
I have to pop more Geritol these days. haven't come close to the Viagra and the Cialis yet. All the important parts are working, but the thing is, let's be for real. Still with if you see a regression in a Drew Brees or even Tom Brady, because Tom is 41, and to still have the talent and the skill these guys still possess at the age they are, and you can still see there's a couple more good years there.
Yeah.
And then you have the next tier. You see, that shows something to how they prepare themselves, even to prepare their bodies to stay conditioned through all of this, So, he was behind on some of those passes, and I think it could be, I don't know if it's going to be age as a result, but sometimes that's just how Drew Brees has been playing all his career. Sometimes you just don't have those bewildering passes.
Take chances. Sometimes, look, he's not perfect, and as great as a quarterback, future Hall of Famer. Look, I mean, and every quarterback does it. Even the Bradys and the Rodgers and those type of guys. There's sometimes you think you see something, or you think you got a matchup. You've been watching film all week, and cornerback X, he has a tendency to play loose, in a certain coverage or whatever, I mean, you saw on two of those throws that they were just completely blanketed, just well covered, and he tried to force it in there. And I remember thinking to myself, what is he doing? You know, he should know better than this. And said there was just something maybe he saw on film all week or whatever, and he was just he was adamant he was going to attack that whatever it was he thought he saw, and it almost cost him. You know, look. I even said on Twitter, one of the Packers beat writers said, you know, that he was agonizing over the fact that the Packers had 2 Drew Brees interceptions and came away with 0 points. And I tweeted back at him and I said, and that's going to be the difference in the game. Lo and behold, that was the difference in the game. So, you know, hey, it all comes down to sometimes those little things that you don't think about at the time, you know, and 2 hours later, it turns out to be different. So, but yeah, I personally think that Brees, and I said this last week, I think he's going to play the 2020. The 2020 NFL season is actually going to be the 100th year of the NFL. And I think if I had to guess, and this is just wild speculation, I have no idea, but if I had to guess, I think Drew Brees probably has that as a goal in mind because it's just a round number. 2020, it's the 100th year of the NFL. And I think he'll be 41 maybe. So I think that's kind of, if I had to guess, I'm thinking that's his goal. And if he does sign a contract extension with the Saints, it wouldn't shock me if he signs it exactly that way through the year 2020. And he's hoping that he can last that long. We'll see.
Okay.
You know,
well,
like
I have a question for you, Barry, and I have a question for you, Bob, as well. And I was thinking about this as far as Brees, if he does sign another contract, he does come back to the New Orleans Saints. What's the scenario he won't sign the contract? What's the scenario out there if Brees does not come back to the Saints after this season? Is it because the Saints do not go to the playoffs? He doesn't decide to come back, or Sean Payton ships out? What's those scenarios or those possibilities?
Well, I definitely think it a lot will these next 10 weeks will have a big factor in that. You know, I don't want to wish them bad luck, but let's just say that they, this great start that they've gotten off to, let's say all of a sudden they falter and they wind up having that 4 straight losing season that after the first 2 games we thought they were definitely on course to have. I think that could play into it, but that or the only other scenario I can see besides a total collapse from this point forward would be if he just got such a phenomenal offer that he couldn't turn it down. And maybe a team like Jacksonville, who was a quarterback. Obviously, Blake Bortles is trash, and Jacksonville's got a fantastic young defense. They got Leonard Fournette, who's just been running over people as a rookie. Looks like he might be offensive rookie of the year. So I could see a Jacksonville making a play. I really could. So, but it would have to be that somebody just got in, just threw some outrageous amount of money at him that he thought to himself, man, I just cannot turn this down. This would set my family up. This would set my kids up to, pay for their college and my grandkids' college. That's how much money it is because you don't even need any more money at this point. His bank account's got to be ridiculous. So it would be because of that, or because they totally collapsed and he says, you know what, I'm out of here. That would be the only 2 factors I would see, because otherwise, if this team is on its current trend up, look, there's no reason for him to leave. All he's been waiting for is a defense, and he finally got it. So if nothing crazy happens between now and the next 10 weeks, I gotta think he's coming back. So.
Okay. Well, let's project a little bit. Let's become the trick and treaters that we are here. the New Orleans Saints, man, we have a great opportunity right now, of course. The Saints are going to be facing Chicago coming up, right? But the Saints also have Tampa Bay afterward, the Bills, the Redskins, the Rams, Carolina, and the Falcons, and the Jets, the Falcons again, and the Bucks. Now, we're talking the Saints had one of the most difficult schedules at the beginning of the season. I think it was over 65%
Right.
winners the Saints had to face, and it was the number one schedule, or most difficult schedule, and these guys came out.
And they won 4 out of 6, and you know,
4 out of 6, right?
If they were to split those first two instead of getting beat like they did, I mean, they potentially could have been 5-1, and man, you know, it's funny how the NFL works, because the Falcons are 3-3, and they're literally 2 plays away from being 1-5. That's how you know how things can swing from one extreme to the other. So, you know, I mean, 4 weeks ago we thought this team was done, and they were headed for a 4th straight losing season. And I was writing, you know, I was ready to write my fire Sean Payton article. My fire Sean Payton article was in the bullpen warming up. I was just ready to write it, and lo and behold, here I am praising the man 4 weeks later about what a great job he's done. So, you know, it just goes to show you how funny in the NFL things can change instantly sometimes, and quite often it does.
Well, here's my point, Barry and Bob. I mean, these games aren't cakewalks.
No,
you know,
absolutely.
And
I don't mean to cut you off again, but look, the Rams might be they might be one of the best teams in the NFC right now.
Right.
Buffalo. You got to go through. Hey, look, it might not be snowing, it might not be 20 below zero, but Buffalo is a tough place to play, and they're 4-2, and they're playing great football right now. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And NFC South is the NFC South. They're always tough. It doesn't matter how bad Tampa Bay or Carolina is playing right now, or even the Falcons. They're division games, and it's going to be a slugfest. So I totally agree with you.
Okay.
And there's no givens. I know, and even myself, I had even said it was going to be a quote-unquote softer part of the schedule, but that was, weeks ago, before I knew Buffalo was going to be good, before I knew the Rams were going to be as good as they are. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's not going to be easy by any stretch.
You're right, man, and that's the point I was about to make, and I'm glad you mentioned these things, Barry, because if you look at the NFC South, we have, Bob, 5 more games to play in the NFC South. The Saints have to, in my opinion, do no less than drop at least one of those games.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. If they go, say, 3-2 in the 5 remaining division games, then they better run the table with the rest. And I completely agree with both you and what Barry said. The Bills and the Rams now suddenly don't look like pushovers, number one. Number two, both of those games are on the road. It's always tough for the Saints to play well when they come north to Buffalo, no matter what time of year it is. Now you're talking, we're coming into November. Barry can attest to this too. It's already getting cool up here. So, anytime you have a road game in the NFL, that's always a wild card. You throw in a road game against a team that's playing well and an environment that a team like the Saints does not traditionally play well in, and suddenly you're rolling the dice a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't want to drop conference games, and you certainly don't want to drop divisional games.
Right.
When you have an opportunity, as the saying goes, to put your foot on the throat of a rival, and the Buccaneers, the Falcons, and even the Panthers, with not necessarily with their record, but the way they're playing, they're all reeling right now. The Saints have already taken a game on the road against Carolina, which was huge. But they'll get the Buccaneers next week. Jameis Winston is kind of beat up. That roster has all kinds of holes already, and I don't know if you guys heard, but one of their best defensive players, Akeem Spence, he's done for the year now.
Oh, really?
With another injury.
No, I didn't hear about that. Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. It just hit the wires today. I forget what he hurt, but they put him on injured reserve today, so they're down. They're down Akeem Spence. But yeah, I mean.
If you look at okay, let's say you say 3-2, the Saints can possibly go against the NFC South. What about you, Barrett? Just the record. What do you think is a good projection?
Worst case, I'm going to go 3-3. I think Carolina's going to come back and play the Saints tough at the Superdome. I think they'll split Tampa because Tampa's always going to give them a tough time. They might win in Tampa, which is what they usually do, and lose at the Superdome. I would suggest that they'll lose next week, but so they might flip flop that around this year. And then the Falcons. Look, the Falcons, as bad as they've looked, like I said, they're 2 plays away from being 1-5. But as bad as they've looked, it would not shock me if the Falcons show up, and because it's arch rival. They're arch rivals, and both teams are kind of still in that. Usually in the Falcons-Saints rivalry, one team has a decided advantage over another. One team is up, and while the other team's down. It goes in cycles. I think this is one of the few times that you're going to see if the Saints can maintain this level of performance, that both teams are up. So these games coming up in December are gonna be critical. And I said it. I don't know. It might have been 2 days ago. I think it was 2 days ago when I was doing the updated playoff thing, and I said it. And I said it in the evaluation after I listed the playoff teams, and I said that the 2 games that they play against the Falcons in December could ultimately determine the division, and I still feel that way. I think those 2 games in December will decide the NFC South, but I think they'll split that. So if you add it up, it looks like 3-3. And to me, they have to split. If they're going to win the division, if they're going to go to the playoffs, I think they at least have to split those games. So right now they're 1-0. We'll see what happens after next week, but if they can just get at the worst a 3-3 split, I think they got a shot to win it. So we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Okay, and I think they can do a little bit better in
they could. Yeah,
in these games. The only games they can afford to lose, and Bob, you brought up the conference deal, is the Bills and the Jets right now.
Right.
I mean, the AFC opponents. That's the only thing I see as a good possibility for them losing. They cannot go to Los Angeles against a dangerous Rams team and lose that game. And they cannot have the Redskins to come in and beat them as well. They cannot allow that to happen. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a critical November and December for the New Orleans Saints. This game here, if it puts them at 5-2, if they're able to come away with the victory, going to play the Bucks, the Bills, and Redskins those next 3 games. If they come away 2-1, let's say 2-1, then they're at 7-3. That's a good mix. Then you play, let's say the Rams, the Panthers, and Falcons. If you come away 2-1 again, then you're at 9-4. So the scenarios are they have to in my opinion, I was just thinking about this. The next 6 games they have to at least come away 4-2 again. So. But anyway, guys, it's a lot of
doubt. Not just because of the opponents, but the majority of those games are at home too. The Bears are at home this weekend.
Right.
The Buccaneers are at home next weekend.
They can't lose
then on
those
the
home
road
games.
at Buffalo, and then back at home against the Redskins. You cannot lose at home. It's as simple as that. Not if you want to be a playoff team.
And not only that, I think if we are better at home, and the NFL teams see that we are better at home, it would start to put that doubt in their minds that was not there these past several years with the Saints have a losing record at home, that These guys are for real. They're back to their old ways. The Dome is a place that you don't want to go into. You don't want to have to face Drew Brees. You don't want to have to face a surging defense in the New Orleans Saints. So, yeah, we've got to come away and win at home, no doubt. All right, guys, good stuff there. And before we start wrapping up the show, any last words there about the Saints and what to expect? Any X factors for this games that against the Bears that they need to be looking out for as fans, Bob?
Keep an eye on the linebacking cores on both defenses. We already know what the Saints can bring to the table offensively with Kamara out of the backfield, but Mark Ingram is a solid pass receiving threat as well. And we talked early in the show about the team, New Orleans liking to run the quick slants and the bubble screens to the wide receivers in Kamara. That's going to force these Bears linebackers, who are very athletic, to make plays from sideline to sideline. That could stretch them out and open up the running game a little bit more. But at the same time, be very, very, very careful of the turnover and the dumb play, especially early in the game, to keep an under-talented Chicago game in it. Because you do that for too long, they're going to get confidence, and then you're going to be in a dogfight in the fourth quarter. Then as far as the Saints linebacking core, and hey, I wrote about it earlier in the week when I handed out my game balls. I gave top performances to A.J. Klein and Craig Robertson. Barry talked about how well they played against Green Bay. I thought those guys played phenomenal. They were covering a very athletic Green Bay tight end, Martellus Bennett, down the field. Klein had a very nice pass breakup on Randall Cobb. So the Saints secondary, which is developing into a strength of the team, obviously played well. But those linebackers really impressed me with the way that they played too, especially in pass coverage. And we talked earlier in the show today about the Bears going to have to rely on the talents, both rushing and receiving talents of their two running backs. So Robertson and Klein are going to be put on the spot again. Hopefully they can repeat the top performance.
Good. Barry, and what should Sean Payton and the rest of these guys do on the coaching staff to be able to come away with the W inside the Dome?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is they got to stop the run. Jordan, Bob alluded to it earlier. Jordan Howard is a what's the word I want to use? He's the power back, I guess, so to speak. He's the thumper, if you want to call it that, whatever terminology you want to throw out there. He's the lead back, and he's capable of just running over you, basically. And then you got Tariq Cohen, out of North Carolina, AT&T, with the division, I guess that's what, Division 2, Bob? I don't recall where North Carolina.
Yeah. I think they have different terminology for it too.
He was a Division 2 All-American. So I mean, he's just a phenomenal player, and that's a good. I don't know if I said it quite that way, but yeah, the analogy was that he was the poor man's version of Alvin Kamara. Basically, they're the same player. The difference is Kamara played in the SEC and Cohen played in Division 2, but otherwise they're the same guy, basically. So to me, that's one, that would be the main thing, because we saw at Green Bay where Green Bay, gashed them. I mean, gashed them in the running game in that first quarter. Aaron Brown, I believe, had 130 yards. He had 70 of it in the first quarter. In the first series, I think he had 70 yards. So. Yep. Then you got to stop the run. And then as far as the X factor, here's an X factor for you, and I even put it in my little prediction article that I like to have fun with every week. And by the way, anybody who reads the prediction article, it's not meant to be an actual prediction. It's entertainment. It's my one article a week where I get freelance and do entertainment, basically, and it makes it actually enjoyable. I don't feel like it's a job every day. But and I actually have it in the final scenario of the game where Connor Barth, the kicker for the Bears, misses the kick. He has 3 misses already this year from outside of 40 yards. So watch out for that. If this game were to come down to a kick, you already know about my concerns about Will Lutz for the Saints. So both teams have concerns with the kicking game. Lutz would get his kickoff deep enough. He missed an extra. Well, you had an extra point block last week. Yeah, like I said, I like Will Lutz. Don't get me wrong, but this is a kid I've compared to Russell Ersklavin. So I'm still not 100% sold on him. And the Bears, they had the same problem. So if you want an X factor for this game, watch out for both kickers. That would be my X factor.
Okay. And guys, my X factor would be Ted Ginn. Please hold on to the ball.
Yeah. Good job.
All right, guys. All right, good stuff. And I appreciate you guys. Bob, how can everybody follow you on social media?
First of all, again, thank you both gentlemen for having me on the show again. I always love talking football and Saints football with you guys. But if y'all want to follow me, I can be reached individually at my own Facebook and also Twitter at Bobby R2613. And as we talked about, I do write for the Canal Street Chronicles. Canal Street Chronicles has a terrific Facebook site where all of us post our articles through there. And it can also be followed on Twitter at Saints CSC. Check us out. We do a lot of different things during the course of the week. We work very closely with Saints News Network and you, Kyle, and Barry Hirstius. And thank you for the opportunities that you give to us as well.
Hey, no problem, man. We all family. We all love the Saints, and, we are who that's. Barry, how can the people follow you?
All right, well, they can follow me at Barry Hirstius. It's spelled, the last name, obviously not spelled Barry, but the last name is spelled Hirstius. That always gets misspelled, even by my granddaughter's kindergarten teacher today. But at Barry Hirstius, and then obviously you can follow me at Saints News, which is our Twitter handle for Saints News Network, or of course you can always come to www.saintsnewsnetwork.com, where you'll get either Saints articles, just basically under Saints News, or you can get articles under my name, Barry Hirstius, which basically are opinion articles or editorials, as is known in the journalism business. And so that's how you can distinguish between what's a regular Saints article on SaintsNewsNetwork.com or what's an editorial or an opinion article. But I write them both because I am the writer right now for SaintsNewsNetwork.com, which I love doing. And just a shout out to Bob and John Hendricks, our good friend John Hendricks, and Deuce Wyndham and all the other guys that write on the Canal Street Chronicle staff. We enjoy having their articles featured on our page. And of course, I worked closely with John at Who Dat Dish years ago. And of course, Bob was my number one writer for Big Easy Believer for, a year and a half, 2 years. So, we're all closely interrelated, even though we're all, kind of split up now. But we're all still friends in the business. And one thing we all share, without question, is a passion for the New Orleans Saints football team. As I alluded to, I've been following the team since 1973. Which we're talking 44 years now, 45 years almost. So, I turned 50 this Saturday. So for, 45 out of my 50 years, the New Orleans Saints have been an indelible part of my life. And, it's just something I enjoy doing. It's something I'm passionate about. And it's great to share that passion with guys such as yourself.
Oh, awesome, man. I'm glad to have both of you young gentlemen a part of the crew.
Oh, nice.
Look,
Young, you guys are trying to work up sponsorship from Viagra and Geritol. What are you talking about?
look, man, extends anything that you guys got. Help me out. I need it. You know, I am not shamed in my game. No. But look, guys, all seriousness, let's keep Coach Rick Gailey in our prayers. He's going through his 4th round of chemo. We're right there with you, Coach. We're thinking about you, and we just anticipate you coming through with some fast healing, man. Yeah. So we miss you and we love you. And one of New Orleans' own, Fats Domino, passed away earlier today.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention that. Man, what a phenomenal talent. If you go look up my name on Facebook, I have it posted on my Facebook page. The original New Orleans legend. And man, what a phenomenal career he had. And if you think about original New Orleans rhythm and blues or New Orleans style music, because New Orleans has its own style, it has its own culture, and if you were to put a face on the music scene of New Orleans of the last century, it would be Fats Domino. And just our prayers to his family, and we certainly honor his legacy. It'll live forever. I said it on Twitter. I believe it's the actor Wendell Pierce, New Orleans native, who had made a touching tribute on his Twitter account, and I made a comment on there that he'll always be remembered. He'll always be revered. He Fats Domino is New Orleans. He was a part of New Orleans. He was a big part of my childhood. My mom had all his records, when she was a kid, and obviously, so when I was a kid, I got to hear all of them. And even John Hendricks and I, when we did a radio show together, our outro song was "I'm Walking to New Orleans," and that's the song that I have posted up. So just man, shout out to the fat man. He was the greatest.
Yeah, definitely. I used to pass by his house every time I would go see my girlfriend down in the 9th Ward. So that purple house. Yes.
Big pink house. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, guys, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget, you can follow us at www.saintsnewsnetwork.com as well as www.saintsnews.net. And like Barry said, you can check us out on Twitter at Saints News, and just be there on Sunday as we follow the team. I'll post some comments from time to time, and you guys can check Barry as well as Bob rolls out as well. If you guys have any questions, you can always email us at whodat@saintsnews.net, and I'll give all those questions, hand them over to Barry so he can field those questions to you guys.
Sure.
And one last thing, man, and this was one of the special times of the year for the professor. He used to always like a funny Halloween type of theme for our show. I didn't have a chance to do anything special, but I was thinking about you, Professor, and it's been 156 days since his passing, and you're always with us. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget, you can check us out on TuneIn. You can check us out on Stitcher. You can check us out on Spreaker. And if you have an Echo from Amazon, you can always say, Alexa, play Saints News Radio, and we will come in with the latest episode on our podcast. This is Kyle T. Mosley from Saints News Radio and the Crescent City Connection. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Remy. You guys have a great day. But better than that, let's have a Who Dat Sunday as our boys take on the Chicago Bears. Peace. Take care.